Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So if you're watching this, the first round has come to an end. We know which 8 teams are advancing to the next round, but also we know which 8 teams were first round exits. Their seasons tragically came to an end. So today I wanted to look at those 8 teams and kind of rank who was the most disappointing first round exit based on preseason expectations, midseason expectations, what they did at the trade deadline, how old's their core, do they have multiple cracks at it, or was this one of their last cracks and they lost in the first round? It's an absolute disgrace. So we are going to be starting with 8 and working our way down with this. Also, I'm going to factor in how they lost in the playoffs. Did they get killed, or was it a game 7 really close? Let's get into it. Without further ado, at number 8, I got the Washington Capitals. I think you can definitely be disappointed in the fact that you got swept by the New York Rangers, but realistically, nobody had this series even going to like a game 7. People had it either Rangers in 6-5 or even the sweep. So this team just didn't really have what it takes. They're an aging core. There's clearly a retool that has been going on. I mean, at the deadline, they traded Manta for a second and a fourth round pick, as well as trade Kuznetsov and take half of his salary just to get a third round pick back. So there wasn't any expectations on this team. It definitely stinks to see Ovi potentially go out in terms of the playoffs the way that he did, going scoreless. But if you're a Washington Capitals fan, I think this was just kind of a fun year for the most part. I don't think that you getting swept by the Rangers just made this year a massive failure. You got to see your team make the playoffs while also more so transition into that next generation. So Capitals check in at a healthy 8th over 8th. I would just say it's not a disappointment at all for them. These next 7, there is definitely some more disappointment. 7th, I have Nashville. When looking at Nashville, another team similarly to Washington, didn't have a ton of expectations coming into the season. You look at what they did. They bought out Matt Duchene. They retained half of Ryan Johansson's contract. They were doing this retool. They did bring in Ryan O'Reilly, but we expected them to be hopefully around like an 80 to 90 point team. They go on that fantastic run at the end of the season. They sold and kind of bought at the deadline. It was a really weird deadline. They made a bunch of either traded for guys for 4th or 5th round picks, or traded out guys for 3rd or 4th round picks. So they didn't go that aggressive. I could see them maybe being a spot higher just because once Demko went down, they had a serious shot to win in the playoffs. In the series, you could make an argument that they were the better team than the Vancouver Canucks. Definitely in at least 3 of the games that they probably should have won. Blue game 1, blue game 4. So in looking at it, that's definitely disappointing. But I think when you take a step back and you look at Nashville this season, and they smashed so many expectations with this team. And mind you, this was a season where UC Soros only had a 907. So I still think the future does look pretty bright in Nashville. They're a pretty competitive team while also having a solid prospect pool to build off of. They're going to probably retool yet again this summer, make some minor moves, some tweaks. I don't think it's that disappointing. Maybe the series itself, but all these situational surroundings of Nashville wasn't that much expectations for their team this year. They blew expectations out of the water. Number 6, my New York Islanders. I know that similarly to Washington, nobody was picking us for the most part. I understand that from that standpoint, it's not a disappointment. But when you look at this core, we haven't had a first round pick in 4 years. It's unacceptable to lose in the first round, especially in 5 games to a Carolina team. I thought we played actually better than I thought we would in those 5 games. I thought we probably should have gone 6 games if we don't blow the 3-0 lead. Even the last game of the series, I thought we were right there. So in looking at that, it's just demoralizing in the sense that we don't have any future prospects to bring up to improve this team. We're kind of just stuck. But yeah, I can't have them too high just because I didn't really expect us to win in the first round or go on a deep Stanley Cup run. But it is definitely disappointing if you're a New York Islanders fan. The overall perspective of what's to come in the next 3 to 4 years is not very promising. They're going to be a highly competitive team, but it's just been kind of downhill since 2020. Well, I guess technically we went uphill after 2022 when we missed the playoffs, but it's just been a lot of mediocre play for the New York Islanders, more of the same, and disappointing from that regard. Tampa Bay at number 5. They're an interesting one because they've already won, so they don't have as much pressure as other teams to make it out of the first round, go on deep runs. But I do think it is very disappointing to first off lose to the Florida Panthers, your in-state rival. Florida has kind of taken the baton as the best team in Florida, without a doubt. Go deeper in the playoffs last year, now beat you in 5 games. That is massively disappointing, as well as the fact that you waste a Nikita Kucherov Hart-level season. I'm not saying he's going to fall off next season, but this is the best season of his career, no doubt. I think he was better this year than in 2019. So you probably wasted Nikita Kucherov's best year. Granted, you didn't waste other years when you won the goddamn Stanley Cup, but this core was still playing at a pretty high level. They didn't really buy that much at the deadline, so I can't have them above like fifth, and just they have one, so it's not extremely disappointing, but it does stink for the Tampa Bay Lightning the way that they went out in 5 games. That is very disappointing for a core that you thought would have at least put up more of a fight against the Florida Panthers. Number 4. This might be surprising. People might say that they'd have them a couple spots higher, but I have the Toronto Maple Leafs here. I didn't have that much of expectations for them coming into the playoffs, coming into basically post-deadline when they didn't really do much. Their defense core was a wreck. They didn't buy like last year when they got Ryan O'Reilly. I didn't have that much expectation, so I can't really put them that high on this list. When looking at it, this was more of an assessment first year from Brad Treliving. He didn't go aggressive for the most part across the board. I didn't expect this team to go on a deep run, and although blowing that to Boston definitely stinks, they do have some excuses built in. The fact that William Nylander missed the first 3 games, that he was still battling something when he came back, even though he had 3 goals in 4 games. He was very good. Matthews was playing hobbled, missed some games. Joseph Woll ends up missing game 7. So they have some excuses built in, but just overall for Toronto, I think this was probably the most acceptable first-round loss that they've had since their first or second year with Matthews, Marner, and Nylander. When looking at it, there's not nearly as enough outrage. We can all agree that change is finally going to come. In previous years, it's like, what are we doing? We're just running it back nonstop. I feel like there's almost optimism after this loss that we're going to finally see some change that is so apparent based on the last 3 to 4 years that this core, it just doesn't work together. They're never playing at a high level come playoff time. It's just unacceptable. So from a Toronto standpoint, it's disappointing, but I think this was kind of inevitable. Not a first round loss, but they weren't going to go that far, and as a result, they're going to be blowing it up. Third, who I think had a pretty disappointing exit, is the LA Kings, man. Although I didn't think that they had that much of a chance of the Edmonton Oilers, I think coming into this season, mid-season, trading for PLD in the last offseason, the fact that they went so aggressive, they traded a first-round pick just to, maybe it was a second-round pick, but they traded assets just to keep Gavrikov, just to keep this team together, and the fact that they lost in less games to the Edmonton Oilers is so demoralizing, and they wasted another year of Kopitar and Doughty still playing. Doughty probably had his best year of the past 5 or 6 years, wasted that on a first-round exit in 5 games, pretty embarrassingly. Edmonton was just the better team. Outside of Game 4, I think Edmonton, every game that they deserved to win pretty handily. So yeah, this team's just kind of stuck. They're not stuck like my Islanders. I think they're a little bit better, but they're just in this perfectly above average place, if that makes sense. And I don't know how they really elevate that, considering now they're giving a third-line center $8.5 million. If I'm an LA Kings fan, I am very disappointed in my team, disappointed in my management, considering 3 straight years losing to the Edmonton Oilers 7, 6, 5 games. It's unacceptable, man. It's unacceptable, and as a result, I think you have to be really disappointed if you are an LA Kings fan. Next up, Vegas Golden Knights. It's tough because they won the Stanley Cup last year, so it's not extremely disappointing, but they went so aggressive at the deadline that I think you got to have them somewhat high. They trade a first in their 2023 first for Hurdle. I know he's going to be here long term, as well as with Hannafin, they give up a lot. Manta, they give up a second and a fourth. So although they did win the Stanley Cup last year and they did play the first overall seed in the Western Conference, I still think this is a massively disappointing first round exit when you are aggressive as Vegas. When you pull the shenanigans with the Mark Stone LTIR move, you're expected to go on a very deep Stanley Cup run. I don't think that that's unrealistic expectations. So the fact that they fell short, although it was Game 7, unacceptable. Still unacceptable. I'm sure Vegas management's not sitting back and saying, we won the Cup last year. Who cares that we lost in the first round? No, this core is old. Petrangelo's 34. Stone's 32. Marchessault's 32. He might be gone considering he needs to get paid this offseason from $5 million to probably $6.57 million. This core is not young. Hurdle's also getting up there. Even Hannafin and Theodore are 27, 28. Eichel's 27. They're going to have more cracks at it, but with this stacked of a team, I don't know how they're going to keep on going at this rate. They'll find a way, I'm sure. But Vegas, you could make an argument that this might be their last real stack team. So going forward, yeah, this is somewhat of a blown opportunity, even though they did play the first seed in the Western Conference overall. Next up, I got to go with the Winnipeg Jets, just because although they weren't a better team than the Dallas Stars, the way that they got dismantled against the Colorado Avalanche, final 4 games, blown out basically every single game allowing at least 5 goals, on top of the fact that you go out, you trade that first, second, third, fourth in order to get Sean Monahan and Tyler Toffoli. You go that aggressive. You call your shot. And considering your core is kind of old, Scheifele's what, 31 years old. Hellebuck's 31 years old. Morrissey's 28 or 29. Connor's 27 at this point. You're going to run it back because you're Winnipeg. You can't do some type of retool, rebuild. You're going to run it back. But how are you confident in this group come next season, considering how bad it was? Your defense core isn't that young. Guys like Brendan Dillon, DeMello, Schmidt, Pionk, if you bring them back, you have solid prospects, but are those guys going to be NHL-ready, high-impact guys by next year, by the following year? While Scheifele and Hellebuck are still very good players, they kick in. Their $8.5 million contracts kick in. So in looking at it, yeah, it's going to be a tough season for the Winnipeg Jets fan. I've kept on repeating this word, but it is demoralizing if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan right now, considering you think that this is probably your best shot to go on a deep run since 2018, and Colorado bends you over those final 4 games. And the only reason they lost game 1 was because Georgiev was horrible. They outplayed you in that game too. So when going forward for the Winnipeg Jets, yeah, there's a lot of question marks that are going to be raised this season in the way that they lost in the first round after being so aggressive. Even though they thankfully got off PLD, that was the one of the past calendar year, the one massive win by them. But still, it's definitely a lot of question marks in Winnipeg, and not that young of a core, and not that clear, obvious fix that they need. They'd have to retool the entire defense core, but yeah, not good for Winnipeg. So Winnipeg's my number 1. The rest, you know how it goes. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? Who would you move up? Who would you move down? I'll be seeing the next one.